The thunderous growl of the floatplane's engine shattered the morning stillness, a bold declaration that we were leaving the familiar world behind. As the pontoon skimmed the water and the plane lifted into the sky, a surge of anticipation coursed through me. This was the threshold, the point of no return, and the beginning of something truly wild. Far below, the jagged coastline of Kodiak Island unraveled like a living tapestry, its cliffs battered by relentless waves, its forests dense and impenetrable. The Shelikof Strait stretched out, a vast shimmering expanse that seemed to swallow the horizon, hinting at the isolation that awaited us. Our destination was Katmai National Park, a realm so remote that only the bravest or most determined ever set foot here. There were no roads, no signs of civilization, just endless wilderness, accessible only by air or sea and ruled by the forces of nature. Inside the cramped cabin, the air was thick with anticipation. Every man aboard pressed his face to the glass, eyes wide, with a mixture of awe and nervous excitement. The hum of the engine was matched only by the pounding of our hearts. We were flying into a land where human presence is fleeting and the true sovereigns are the mighty brown bears. The thought of sharing space with such powerful creatures sent a thrill through us all. The 45-minute flight felt like a journey through time itself. With every passing mile, the trappings of modern life fell away, replaced by a sense of raw, unfiltered existence. The world below was a patchwork of emerald forests, winding rivers, and endless tundra. The familiar grid of roads and towns faded, replaced by a panorama of untouched wilderness. Mountains rose like ancient sentinels, their slopes cloaked in deep green, their peaks lost in swirling mist. As we neared the Katmai coast, the landscape shifted dramatically. The forests gave way to stark, windswept headlands and broad tidal flats teeming with life. The lush slopes of Kodiak were replaced by jagged snow-capped peaks and ancient glaciers, their icy blue depths a reminder of the land's primordial origins. Here the mountains seemed to guard secrets older than memory. This was a land forged by fire and ice, shaped by the cataclysmic eruption of 1912. The scars of that event still mark the earth, a testament to the raw power that continues to define this place. Our pilot guided the plane with steady hands, weaving between mountain ridges so close it felt as if we could reach out and touch the stone. The thrill of danger was ever present, a reminder of how small we truly are in this vast expanse. We scanned the green coastal plains below, searching for movement, any sign of the legendary wildlife that called this place home. Every shadow, every ripple in the grass set our imaginations racing. Suddenly, a collective gasp filled the cabin. There, far below, brown specks ambled across the meadows, bears wild and free, utterly at home in this untamed world. Our descent began, a slow, graceful arc toward a bay so still it mirrored the sky. The anticipation was electric. Every sense was heightened, every moment stretched out in vivid detail. The floats touched the water with a gentle splash, sending ripples across the glassy surface. We glided toward a shoreline that looked as if it had never known the touch of man. Stepping out of the plane, boots sinking into the gravelly beach, was like waking from a dream. The air was sharp and invigorating, filled with the scent of salt and earth. The wind carried the briny tang of the ocean, mingling with the rich, loamy aroma of wet soil and sedge-grass. Every breath was a reminder that we had crossed into another world. Silence enveloped us, broken only by the distant cry of a gull and the rhythmic lapping of waves. It was a silence so deep it seemed to echo with the heartbeat of the land itself. We had arrived in the domain of the brown bear. Here we were not conquerors, but humble guests, standing at the edge of a world ruled by instinct and survival. Our guides, Scott and his seasoned crew, greeted us with firm handshakes and quiet confidence. Their presence was reassuring, a steady anchor in this sea of wilderness. With practiced efficiency, they helped us unload our gear, every movement honed by years spent in this unforgiving environment. Their calm demeanor spoke of countless adventures and hard-won wisdom. The float plane's engine roared to life once more, and as it lifted off, the sound faded into the vast silence. We watched it disappear, the last link to civilization vanishing into the sky. There was no turning back. For the next 4 days, this wild, remote corner of Alaska would be our home, a place where every sense would be tested and every moment would be an adventure. Cut off from the outside world, we felt more alive than ever, attuned to the primal rhythms of the land. The wilderness beckoned, promising challenge, discovery, and the kind of freedom only found at the edge of the world. Katmai National Park is a realm of superlatives. Spanning over 4 million acres, it is a vast and roadless wilderness, a protected sanctuary where nature operates on its own terms. Its origins are as dramatic as its scenery. The park was established in 1918, not for its wildlife but to preserve the apocalyptic landscape left behind by the 1912 eruption of Novarupta. This cataclysmic event was one of the largest volcanic eruptions in recorded history, creating the spectacular Valley of 10,000 Smokes. Yet while its geological wonders are awe-inspiring, Katmai has become world-renowned for something else entirely. It is home to the planet's largest protected population of brown bears, with an estimated 2,200 individuals roaming its mountains, rivers, and coastal plains. The sheer scale of the park is difficult to comprehend. It is an immense mosaic of ecosystems, from towering glacier-filled volcanoes to lush coastal meadows and salmon-choked rivers. This diversity of habitats is what allows such a dense population of bears to thrive. They are the undisputed kings and queens of this domain, their lives intricately woven into the fabric of the landscape. The absence of roads and major human infrastructure means that the bears of Katmai have experienced a unique relationship with people. They are not hunted here. For generations they have grown accustomed to the quiet, respectful presence of small groups of visitors, allowing for a level of observation and proximity that is unparalleled anywhere else on Earth. To be in Katmai is to feel a sense of humility. You are a temporary visitor in an ancient world governed by seasons and survival. The landscape itself feels alive, constantly shifting with the tides and the weather. One moment the sun can be shining brightly on the tidal flats, illuminating the rich greens of the sedge grass. The next, a thick fog can roll in from the sea, shrouding the mountains in mystery and muffling all sound. We felt the earth tremble with small, frequent earthquakes, gentle reminders of the powerful geological forces still at work beneath our feet. It is a place that demands respect, a place that reminds you of your own small part in a much larger, wilder story. Walking through this landscape is an exercise in awareness. Every sense is heightened. You notice the intricate patterns of bear trails worn into the meadows, the distinct scent of the goose-tongue plants they graze upon, and the constant, watchful silence of the wilderness. The bears are not just in the park, they are the park. Their presence shapes the very ground you walk on. They are the gardeners of the coastal plains, the fishers of the tidal flats, and the guardians of a wild heritage that has been preserved against the odds. To spend time here is to witness a world where the balance between a powerful predator and its environment remains beautifully and precariously intact. Our safety and our ability to experience this incredible place rested entirely in the hands of our guide, Scott. Scott was more than just a tour leader. He was a seasoned naturalist who had dedicated his life to understanding Katmai's bears and the wilds of Alaska. He lived in the park for 3 months every summer and had accumulated over 10,000 hours in the direct presence of these animals. Scott's approach was not one of dominance or control, but of deep, earned respect. He taught us that the greatest tool for safety in the wild is not a weapon, but knowledge. It is the understanding of bear behavior, learned through thousands of hours of patient observation, that allows for safe and meaningful encounters. One of the first things we learned was that Scott did not carry firearms. He explained this philosophy clearly. In a chaotic, close-quarters situation with a bear, a firearm can create more problems than it solves, risking accidental injury to people or an unnecessary tragedy for the bear. Instead, his confidence came from his ability to read the subtle language of the bears. He knew how to interpret a flick of the ear, a shift in posture, or the sound of a jaw pop. Bear spray was carried as a last resort precaution, but Scott proudly stated he had never once had to use it in all his years at Katmai. This was a testament to his method, building trust and respecting boundaries. This philosophy of respect was evident in every action he took. He taught us how to move through the landscape in a way that was non-threatening to the bears. We learned to walk in a calm, predictable group, using the edges of tall grasslands as a natural fence and avoiding direct, confrontational paths. The goal was never to pursue a bear, but to position ourselves quietly and let the bear's own curiosity and indifference dictate the encounter. By treating them not as monsters to be feared, but as fellow inhabitants of the landscape, Scott fostered a unique sense of trust. The bears saw us simply as another part of their environment, as inconsequential as a tree or a boulder. Scott's wisdom extended beyond just bear behavior. He was deeply connected to the entire ecosystem. He could identify every plant, explain the patterns of the tides, and predict the subtle shifts in weather. He showed us how the lives of the bears were linked to the cycles of the sedge-grass, the flounder in the mudflats, and the eventual arrival of the salmon. Scott was not just our guide, he was our interpreter, translating the complex, silent language of the wild for us. His profound respect for this place and its inhabitants was infectious, shaping our entire experience and instilling in us a similar sense of reverence and responsibility. Around the campfire, Scott would share stories from his early days, nights spent alone in the Alaskan backcountry, learning to track animals by the faintest prints and surviving sudden storms with nothing but his wits and a tarp. He taught us how to read the wind, find dry tinder in a downpour, and set up camp in places where the land itself seemed to resist human presence. His navigation skills were legendary. He could find his way by the stars, the shape of distant ridges, or the subtle bend of a riverbank. When gear failed, Scott improvised with what the land provided, fashioning tools from driftwood or repairing packs with sinew and patience. His lessons were more than practical. They were a philosophy, a way of moving through the wild with humility, resourcefulness, and respect for every living thing. Our home for the next 4 days was a rugged, self-sufficient encampment perched on a windswept grassy bluff high above the misty Alaskan Bay. The camp was surrounded by a vast, untamed wilderness, towering spruce forests, tidal flats stretching to the horizon, and distant snow-capped peaks that glowed pink in the midnight sun. The only sounds were the calls of gulls, the distant roar of the surf, and the occasional crackle of the electric fence. The entire camp was encircled by a portable electric fence, a thin but effective boundary that provided a crucial layer of psychological and physical security. This fence was our first line of defense against the ever-present grizzlies that roamed the area, a constant reminder of the wildness just beyond our temporary sanctuary. Scott, our guide, made it a ritual to check the fence each morning and evening, ensuring the wire was always live. The fence delivered a sharp but harmless jolt, enough to teach any curious bear to keep its distance. The hum of the current was a subtle comfort, especially at night when the fog rolled in and the world outside the fence felt even more remote. After every rain shower and each night before we settled in, the guides would walk the perimeter spraying Simple Green, a cleaning product with a high ammonia content along the boundary. The sharp scent mingled with the earthy smell of wet grass, creating a clear olfactory line between our camp and the bear's domain. This invisible barrier, both physical and chemical, was essential. It marked a fragile truce between us and the wild, a line that both sides respected. Thanks to these precautions, we could sleep soundly, even as the wind rattled the tent walls and the sounds of the wild drifted in from the darkness. Inside the perimeter, life was surprisingly comfortable, though always tinged with the awareness of our isolation. The camp was a small cluster of orange tents, each spaced just far enough apart for privacy, but close enough for a sense of camaraderie. Each tent was equipped with a thick air mattress, a warm sleeping bag, and a pillow, simple luxuries that felt extravagant in such a remote setting. The tents glowed softly at night, a beacon of warmth against the chill and damp. The tents were our refuge from the elements, wind, rain, and the ever-present Alaskan chill. On stormy nights, the sound of rain on nylon was both soothing and a reminder of our vulnerability. Each camper had a small camp chair and table, a place to organize gear, jot down notes, or simply sit and take in the endless views. Organization was key. Every item had its place, and nothing could be left out overnight. The heart of camp was a larger communal tent where we gathered for meals, briefings, and the rare moments of relaxation. Here stories were shared, plans were made, and the sense of isolation was softened by laughter and conversation. Modern logistics met wilderness here. A Starlink satellite dish provided a steady internet connection, while a robust solar power system with Goal Zero stations kept cameras, GPS units, and radios charged. Even in the wild, staying connected and powered up was essential for safety and documentation. It was a surreal experience sending a message home or checking the weather while a wild bear grazed just beyond the fence, a reminder of how technology and wilderness can coexist, if only temporarily. Meals were a lesson in efficiency and adaptation. The guides prepared food on compact stoves, working quickly to minimize scents and avoid attracting unwanted attention. Breakfast was usually freeze-dried oats or granola rehydrated with hot water. The simplicity of the food was offset by the satisfaction of eating it in such a wild place. Dinners rotated between freeze-dried meals, pasta, beef stroganoff, and the occasional surprise. The food was basic, but after a long day, it tasted like a feast. Eating together, surrounded by the vastness of Alaska, was a grounding ritual. The warmth of a meal and the camaraderie of the group helped stave off the loneliness that can creep in during long stretches of isolation. A communal snack bucket was always within reach, filled with energy bars, trail mix, and jerky, fuel for the long hikes and cold nights. The most rustic part of camp was the toilet tent, a simple chair over a bucket shielded by canvas with a panoramic view of the Alaskan wilds. It was a humbling reminder of our distance from civilization. This small detail underscored the reality of our isolation. No running water, no plumbing, just the essentials and the endless landscape. Daily routines quickly fell into sync with the rhythms of the land. The tides dictated our movements, and the bear's activity set the pace for each day. Mornings began early, with a quick breakfast and gear check before heading out with the guides. Every item had to be accounted for, nothing could be left behind, and every step outside the fence was taken with caution. The middle of the day offered a rare chance to rest, nap, or simply listen to the sounds of the wild, wind in the trees, distant bear calls, and the ever-present hum of the fence. Evenings were spent in the golden light, watching bears from a safe distance, sometimes not returning to camp until nearly 11 at night. The long daylight hours stretched each day, making sleep feel like a brief interlude. Life in camp was stripped down to its essentials: eat, sleep, watch bears, repeat. The simplicity was both a challenge and a gift, forcing us to adapt and find comfort in routine. Living in such isolation, surrounded by raw nature, stripped away the distractions of modern life. It left only the profound experience of being present, fully, deeply in the wild heart of Alaska. One of the most fascinating aspects of our journey was observing the daily routines and intricate diets of the bears in this unique coastal environment. Our guides explained the distinction between brown bears and grizzlies, pointing out subtle differences in their habits and habitats. While all are technically the same species, Ursus arctos horribilis, The term brown bear is typically reserved for those populations living within 100 miles of the coast, where they have access to rich marine food sources like salmon and flounder. This abundance of protein and fat allows coastal brown bears to grow significantly larger than their inland grizzly cousins who rely more on berries, roots, and small mammals. However, we arrived in August, just before the major salmon runs began, so the bears' routines shifted to match the available food. During this time, the bears of Katmai earn a different nickname, the Katmai cows, because of their grazing habits. Their days are dominated by a relentless, all-consuming need to eat grass, especially sedge, which is rich in nutrients and easy to digest. It was an extraordinary sight to witness, bears scattered across the meadows, heads down, methodically tearing mouthfuls of green with each step. These massive, powerful predators, some weighing close to 1,000 pounds, would spend hours on end grazing peacefully, their routines almost pastoral. They move slowly, methodically consuming vast quantities of sedge grass and a succulent, salty plant called goose tongue, which grows in abundance along the coast. Our guide Scott explained that a large male bear could eat nearly 100 pounds of this vegetation in a single day, fueling their massive bodies for the coming salmon season. We even tried a piece of goose tongue ourselves. It had a crisp texture and a surprisingly pleasant salty flavour, reminiscent of wild sea asparagus. Watching them graze, you could almost forget they were apex carnivores, as they seemed as placid and content as a herd of cattle, occasionally pausing to look up and sniff the air. But their diet was more varied than just grass. Throughout the day, bears would sample a variety of plants, roots, and even dig for clams along the muddy banks. As the tide receded each day, it revealed sprawling, glistening mudflats, and the bears' behavior would shift as they moved to these new feeding grounds. They would wander out onto the flats to hunt for another important food source, flounder, which hide just beneath the surface of the mud. The bears employed a clever technique, walking slowly through the shallow water and stomping their massive paws on the muddy bottom to startle the fish. They were feeling for the subtle vibration of a flatfish buried in the sand, a skill honed over years of practice. When one was detected, the bear would lunge, pinning the fish with its paws, before devouring it whole, scales and all. It was a testament to their adaptability and intelligence, making the most of every resource their environment provided. One afternoon we watched as a young male bear startled a flock of gulls while digging for clams, sending the birds wheeling overhead in a flurry of white. We learned that a bear's digestive system is remarkably robust, able to process tough plant fibers, fish bones, and even the occasional crab or mussel. They can consume enormous quantities of salt water along with their flounder without any ill effects, and their bodies can process almost anything, including bones and shells. This ability to thrive on such a diverse diet, from grasses and plants to fish, shellfish, and eventually salmon, is the key to their success in this landscape. Understanding this cycle gave us a deeper appreciation for their daily struggle and their seasonal journey. Each day the bears followed a rhythm, grazing in the meadows at dawn, foraging along the tidal flats as the water receded, and resting in the shade during the heat of the afternoon. We were not just watching animals, we were witnessing a masterclass in survival, a life tuned perfectly to the rhythms of the tides and the changing of the seasons. And every so often a curious fox or a bold eagle would approach, hoping to snatch a leftover scrap, adding another layer to the rich tapestry of daily life in Alaska's wild. Of all the bears we encountered in the wilds of Alaska, one family stood out and left a lasting impression on us. A remarkable grizzly sow we came to know as Shelly. Shelly was accompanied by her 3 impossibly small cubs, each only about 5.5 months old. We later called them Peanut, Wally, and Cash. These cubs were tiny, fuzzy bundles of energy, their every movement a display of youthful curiosity and exuberance. Our very first encounter with them was unforgettable. As the tide receded on our first day, we watched Shelly and her cubs emerge onto the open beach. Shelly moved with a calm, deliberate grace, her senses always alert to the world around her. The cubs, meanwhile, scurried to keep up, their steps a mix of playful clumsiness and the first hints of wild instinct. Every moment was a lesson, every step a new adventure. Shelley's life revolved around two vital tasks: finding enough food to sustain herself and produce the rich milk her cubs needed, and protecting her cubs from ever-present threats, especially from large male bears. Boars, who are known to kill cubs. This danger was never far away. On our first day, as Shelley hunted for flounder on the tidal flats, a massive boar began to approach the cubs, who waited anxiously on the shore. The tension was immediate and intense. Shelley stopped fishing, lifted her head and let out a series of deep guttural huffs, a warning and a promise of fierce defense. The boar, recognizing her determination, eventually veered away. The cubs' world was a whirlwind of discovery and play. When not napping in a warm, tangled pile, they explored their surroundings with unrestrained joy, wrestling in the tall grass, pouncing on wildflowers, and standing on their hind legs to sniff the air, their little noses twitching as they absorbed the scents of the wild. They mimicked Shelley's every move, splashing clumsily in the shallows or digging in the sand, learning through play the skills they would need to survive. These games were more than just fun. They were essential lessons in strength, coordination, and survival. Watching the gentle, patient interactions between Shelley and her cubs was deeply moving. After long hours of grazing or fishing, Shelley would settle into the grass, and the cubs would rush to her side, seeking comfort and nourishment. The sight of them nursing, their trust and dependence clear, and Shelley's unwavering protection was a powerful reminder of the universal bonds of family. This was not just a glimpse into the life of wild animals, it was an intimate window into the heart of a family. Witnessing their daily lives so closely was a privilege that transcended ordinary wildlife observation. One of the most profound lessons from our time in Katmai was understanding the unspoken rules that make it possible for humans and bears to share the same wild spaces safely. These rules aren't written on signs or posted at trailheads. They're learned through experience, observation, and the wisdom of those who have spent years in bear country. This was not a zoo or a wildlife park with fences and barriers. Here, in the true wilderness, every action matters, and your safety depends on respecting the natural order. The first rule is awareness. In the wild, you must always be alert, scanning the landscape for bears, reading their body language, and noticing subtle changes in their behavior. Our guides, with years of experience, demonstrated how to interpret a bear's mood. A relaxed bear grazes or fishes, while a stressed bear may huff, swat the ground, or turn its head away. The core principle is predictability. Bears are creatures of habit, and they feel safest when they can anticipate your actions. We moved in a calm, deliberate manner, never making sudden movements or loud noises. We travelled as a single, slow-moving group, speaking in low voices. This signalled to the bears that we were not a threat. Never run from a bear. Running can trigger a bear's chase instinct, even if it wasn't interested in you before. Instead, we were taught to stand our ground or move away slowly if needed. Projecting calmness is essential. Bears are highly perceptive. They pick up on nervous energy. By remaining still and composed, we became uninteresting to them. This approach allowed us to blend into the landscape, becoming just another part of the environment. The bears here, unaccustomed to hunting pressure, have learned over generations that humans who follow these rules are neither a threat nor a source of food. As a result, they often ignore people entirely, going about their business as if we weren't there. For example, we watched a large male bear fish for salmon just yards away, never glancing in our direction because we followed the rules. This indifference is the magic of Katmai. It's what makes close encounters possible without danger. In most places, sitting within a few yards of a wild bear would be reckless. Here, it's possible because both sides understand the rules. Our guides would select a spot, often at the edge of a meadow or along a riverbank, and we would sit quietly, letting the bears decide how close to come. Sometimes a bear would approach, curious but calm. The key was to remain motionless and let the bear set the terms of the encounter. Respecting a bear's personal space is critical. Never block a bear's path or approach it directly. Always give them room to move. Our guides were experts at reading the land, identifying bear trails and ensuring we never blocked these natural highways. If a bear approached, we would silently part, creating a clear path. This simple act of deference showed respect and prevented conflict. Always yield the right-of-way to bears. Never try to stand your ground. If a bear wants to pass, step aside and let it move freely. Avoid tall grass and dense brush where bears may be feeding or resting. Use the edge of vegetation as a natural boundary. This respect for boundaries builds trust, making close encounters possible without risk. On our third day, we faced a real test of these rules. A large male bear was grazing nearby as we sat quietly on the meadow's edge. Suddenly the bear changed direction and began walking straight toward us. Our hearts pounded, but we remembered our training. Stay still, stay calm, and let the bear pass. The tension was real, but no one moved. The bear walked past close enough to hear its breathing, but never broke its stride. This is the essence of coexistence: trust, respect, and a deep understanding of animal behavior. Survival tip: always carry bear spray, but use it only as a last resort. The best defense is prevention. Following these unspoken rules, listen for the sounds of bears: soft footfalls, munching grass, low grunts. These cues can alert you to their presence before you see them. These moments of trust are only possible when both sides follow the rules. In Katmai, we were not intruders, but quiet observers, allowed a glimpse into the private world of the bears. The unspoken rules of coexistence are simple, but they require discipline, humility, and respect. Follow them, and the wild will reveal its wonders safely. Each day, the tides transformed the landscape, revealing a world both haunting and beautiful. As the ocean withdrew, the tidal flats stretched out before us, vast, glistening, and alive with possibility. The mud flats, slick and shimmering in the early light, bore the imprints of countless creatures. Bear tracks crisscrossed the surface, some fresh and deep, others softened by the tide, each one a silent story written in the silt. We followed these tracks, our boots sinking into the mud, hearts pounding with anticipation. In the distance, a massive grizzly prowled the shallows, its fur catching the golden rays of dawn. Every movement was deliberate, every sense attuned to the promise of a meal. We crossed a cold, rushing river in our waders, seeking the perfect vantage point. Settling quietly on the shore, we became part of the landscape, our presence acknowledged but unchallenged by the wild inhabitants. Suddenly, a bear lunged into the water, its massive form vanishing beneath the surface in a spray of foam and mud. The tension in the air was electric, every eye fixed on the unfolding drama. Moments later, the bear erupted from the water, jaws clamped around a writhing flounder. The crunch of bones echoed across the flats, a raw, primal sound that underscored the power and necessity of the hunt. Instead of retreating, the bear strode purposefully toward the shore, settling just a stone's throw from our group. We watched, transfixed, as it devoured its catch, the sounds and sights searing themselves into memory. Later, the drama of the flats intensified. Two bears, each intent on their own path, found themselves on a collision course. The air thickened with tension as they sized each other up, their body language shifting from relaxed to alert in an instant. A series of deep, guttural vocalizations and jaw-popping sounds rang out, a clear warning, primal and unmistakable. One bear, recognizing the challenge, slowly backed away, yielding the ground without a fight. As the sun climbed higher, the flats took on a tranquil beauty. Bears fished along the water's edge, their movements a blend of power and grace, perfectly adapted to this ever-changing world. In the distance, young bears tumbled and played on the grassy banks, their tracks weaving playful patterns in the mud. Occasionally a bear would pause, glancing in our direction, its gaze calm and unthreatened, a silent testament to the delicate trust between wild and human. One bear, after a successful hunt, thundered across the flats, the ground trembling beneath its charge. It reached its destination, and in a rare moment of peace lay down to rest, the wildness of the hunt giving way to a quiet, almost sacred calm. To witness these moments, the raw pursuit, the tense negotiations, the tranquil aftermath, was to glimpse the full spectrum of life on the flats. We were not just observers, but silent participants in the unfolding story of the wild. The sight of bears at rest, their strength momentarily at ease, was a powerful reminder of the balance between ferocity and peace that defines their existence. These encounters on the tidal flats were more than fleeting wildlife sightings. They were dramatic, unforgettable experiences, etched into the mud, the air, and our memories, forever shaping our understanding of what it means to be wild. As the float plane returned on the afternoon of our fourth day, its familiar roar signaled the end of our immersion in the world of the bears. Leaving was a bittersweet experience. We were tired, covered in mud, but our minds and hearts were overflowing with the incredible sights and sounds of the past few days. Flying out, we looked down at the green coastal plains one last time, spotting the familiar brown shapes of the bear families grazing peacefully below. It was hard to believe that just a few hours earlier we had been sitting within feet of them, sharing their space. The journey back to civilization felt like waking from a powerful and vivid dream. This experience taught me more about wildlife than any book or documentary ever could. I learned that bears are not the one-dimensional, aggressive monsters they are often portrayed to be. They are complex, intelligent individuals with rich social lives and deep family bonds. I learned that their indifference is the greatest gift they can give us, a sign of trust that is earned through respect and quiet observation. The philosophy of our guides that knowledge and understanding are the best tools for safety was proven time and time again. Responsible wildlife tourism, when done with expertise and reverence, can create a bridge between our world and theirs without causing harm. Being that close to such immense wild power is a profoundly humbling experience. It recalibrates your sense of place in the world. In the presence of a 1,000-pound bear, you are acutely aware of your own vulnerability. Yet this feeling was not one of fear, but of awe. It instilled a deep and abiding respect for the autonomy of wild creatures and the sanctity of their habitats. It served as a powerful reminder that we are not masters of the natural world, but merely one part of it. We have a profound responsibility to protect these last wild places, to ensure that bears and their cubs can continue to thrive for generations to come. My 4 days camping in Katmai were more than just a trip. They were an education and an inspiration. The memory of gentle grunts between bears, the sound of paws on the wet sand, and the feeling of holding my breath as one walked silently past will stay with me forever. It reinforced my belief that the greatest treasures on our planet are not things we can own, but experiences we can have and wild places we can strive to protect. The bears of Katmai revealed the true meaning of coexistence, the universal language of respect, and the essential role of wildness in the human spirit. In their world, I found not only majesty, but a call to stewardship, a reminder that the wild, in all its raw and untamed beauty, is both a privilege and a responsibility to cherish. Tracking bears in the Alaskan wilderness is both a science and an art, requiring patience, keen observation, and a deep respect for the animals and their habitat. For those who wish to understand these remarkable creatures, learning to read the subtle clues they leave behind is the first step. Begin by scanning the ground for tracks. brown bear prints are unmistakable, broad with 5 toes and a pronounced heel pad. The front paw is more rounded, while the rear paw appears elongated, almost human-like in shape. Fresh tracks are often found along muddy riverbanks or in soft sand where bears forage for clams and roots. Notice the depth and clarity of the print. A crisp outline suggests a recent visitor, while weathered edges mean the bear has moved on. Next, look for scat. Bear droppings vary with the season. Early summer scat may be grassy and green, reflecting a diet of sedges, while later in the year it's darker and filled with berry seeds or fish bones. Examining scat provides invaluable insights into a bear's recent meals and movements. Other signs include tufts of fur caught on tree bark, claw marks etched high on standing trunks, and overturned rocks where bears have searched for insects. Sometimes you'll find a well-worn trail through tall grasses, a silent highway used by generations of bears. Safety is paramount. Always track with an experienced guide, stay alert to your surroundings, and never approach a bear. Respect their space and move quietly, letting the wind carry your scent away from them. A story from our guide comes to mind. After hours of patient tracking, he spotted a massive boar resting in the shade, completely unaware of their presence. By maintaining a respectful distance and observing quietly, they witnessed the bear's natural behaviors, untouched and unbothered. Tracking is not about pursuit, but about understanding. Every sign tells a story, and with each clue, we gain a deeper appreciation for the bears' lives and the wild places they call home. By practicing the art of tracking with humility and care, we become better stewards of the wilderness, and more attuned to the rhythms of the untamed world. As the sun dips behind the jagged peaks, the Alaskan wilderness undergoes a subtle transformation. The golden light fades, casting long shadows across the land and painting the sky in hues of lavender and indigo. A hush settles over the tundra, broken only by the distant cry of a loon and the gentle rustle of wind through spruce branches. The air grows cooler, tinged with the scent of moss and earth. In camp, preparations for nightfall begin in earnest. Lanterns are lit, casting warm pools of light around tents and cooking areas. Food is carefully stowed in bear-proof containers, and every scrap is collected, nothing left to tempt curious visitors. The guides double-check the perimeter, ensuring that all is secure before darkness fully descends. As night deepens, the wilderness awakens in new and unexpected ways. In the distance, a chorus of frogs erupts from a hidden pond, their rhythmic calls echoing through the stillness. Occasionally, the heavy footfalls of a moose can be heard as it moves silently through the brush, its massive silhouette barely visible in the moonlight. The bears, too, are not idle. Though they are most active at dawn and dusk, some roam under cover of darkness, following well-worn paths to fishing streams or berry patches. Once, a guide recounted watching a bear wade quietly into a river, illuminated only by the faint glow of the northern lights. The bear fished with deliberate patience, undisturbed by the sleeping world around it. Inside the tents, sleep comes lightly. Every snap of a twig or distant splash draws a moment of quiet attention. Yet there is comfort in being part of this world, surrounded by the wild's natural rhythm, protected by knowledge, preparation, and respect for all that shares the night. Nightfall in the Alaskan wild is not an end, but the beginning of another chapter, one written in shadow and starlight where every sound and silence tells a story of life enduring in the dark. Bears are often thought of as solitary and silent, but their world is rich with communication, much of it hidden from human eyes and ears. Understanding the language of bears means tuning in to a complex system of signals, from deep vocalizations to subtle gestures and invisible scent trails. Vocalizations are just one aspect of bear communication. Grunts, huffs, moans, and roars each serve a purpose. A mother bear may grunt softly to reassure her cubs, while a deep guttural roar warns rivals or intruders to keep their distance. Field researchers have catalogued dozens of unique sounds, each tailored to a specific situation, whether it's play, aggression, or curiosity. But perhaps more important than sound is body language. Bears communicate volumes through posture and movement. An upright stance, far from being a sign of aggression, is often just a way to get a better view or sniff of the air. Flattened ears and a lowered head, however, are clear warnings. Even the speed and direction of a bear's walk can convey mood. Slow and relaxed for contentment, quick and direct for agitation. Scent marking is another key component of bear language. By rubbing against trees, clawing at bark, or leaving scat in prominent places, bears leave a chemical message for others. These scent marks can communicate identity, reproductive status, and territorial boundaries. Scientists have used ultraviolet light to reveal secret trails and markings invisible to the naked eye, tracing the silent conversations that shape bear society. Field observations reveal that bears are keenly aware of these signals. A newcomer will pause at a marked tree, sniffing intently before deciding whether to move on or linger. In areas where bear populations overlap, these scent and sound cues help prevent conflict, allowing multiple individuals to share the same landscape with minimal confrontation. In the world of the bear, every grunt, posture, and scent is a piece of an ongoing dialogue, a language evolved over millennia to navigate the challenges of the wild. By learning to read these signs, we gain a deeper appreciation for the intelligence and subtlety of these remarkable creatures. Alaska's weather is as unpredictable as it is unforgiving. One moment the sky is clear and calm, the next a storm rolls in with fierce winds and driving rain. Surviving in this wild terrain requires not just physical endurance, but a deep respect for nature's power. Sudden storms can descend without warning, turning a serene landscape into a battleground. Lightning flashes illuminate the sky, and thunder echoes through the valleys. For those of us who call this place home, preparation is key. We build our shelters strong and secure, always mindful of the potential for sudden weather shifts. Freezing nights are another challenge. As temperatures plummet, the cold seeps into every corner, threatening to sap our strength and morale. Our survival strategies are simple but effective. Layer upon layer of insulating clothing, a well-stocked firewood pile, and the warmth of a well-maintained campfire. Personal anecdotes of battling frostbite and enduring long, icy nights are common tales shared around the fire. Rain, too, is a constant companion. It can last for days, drenching everything in sight. Waterproof gear becomes our armor, and we learn to move with the rhythm of the rain, finding shelter when needed and embracing the downpour when it can't be avoided. Each drop is a reminder of the raw beauty and relentless challenge of this land. Through it all, we find resilience in the face of adversity. The elements test us, but they also teach us about our own limits, our resourcefulness, and our ability to adapt. In the heart of the Alaskan wilderness, every storm weathered and every cold night survived is a testament to the enduring spirit of those who choose to live at the edge of the wild. Fire. In the heart of the Alaskan wilderness, it's more than just a source of warmth. It's a lifeline. As temperatures plunge and icy winds sweep across camp, the crackle of flames becomes the heartbeat of survival. Fire wards off the biting cold, dries soaked clothing, and brings comfort on the darkest nights. But its role doesn't end there. Fire is our kitchen too. With a steady flame, we boil water from nearby streams, making it safe to drink. We cook fresh-caught fish and wild game, transforming raw ingredients into nourishing meals. The scent of food cooking over an open flame draws everyone closer, offering not just sustenance, but a sense of community, even in the most remote corners of Alaska. Building a fire here is a skill honed by necessity. First, we gather dry tinder, birch bark, dried moss, or wood shavings, anything that will catch a spark. Next, we stack kindling in a teepee shape, allowing air to flow freely. Larger logs are added gradually, feeding the growing blaze. A single spark struck from flint and steel can ignite a life-saving fire, even in damp conditions. There are stories passed down around every campfire. Tales of nights when fire meant the difference between life and frostbite, when its glow kept curious wildlife at bay, and its warmth revived spirits nearly broken by the cold. Fire in this land is more than a tool. It's a companion, a protector, and a vital part of every day. In Alaska, mastering fire is mastering survival. Each flame tells a story of resourcefulness, resilience, and the timeless bond between humans and the wild.